In this little snippet, I'm going to show you a couple of different ways to make bias binding. To make bias binding, you'll need some woven fabric, a ruler, something to mark your fabric, a bias binding tool if you have one, and scissors or a rotary cutter. Making your own bias binding is such a great way to use up any bits of scrap fabric. I found this cute stripe in my stash and I thought it would be great because it's striped. When it's cut on the bias, the stripes become diagonal and it looks really cute. Now it's called bias binding because it's cut on the bias, which means that it is cut on a 45-degree angle to the selvage. The reason it's cut on the bias is because the bias has stretch in it, and that makes it really useful for going around any curved edges like armholes or neck facings, even curved hems. To find the bias, I'm going to use a set square that has a 45-degree angle on it, and I just need to line it up to the straight edge of my fabric. With my pen, I'm going to rule in my first line. Then I can work on either side of that line to make my strips. If you don't have a set square or a tool that can help you find the 45-degree angle, you can also find it by squaring off your fabric and folding the fabric at a diagonal, like this. You can either cut along that line or press it in place so you can see. Whatever width binding you decide to make, you need to double that width in order to have enough fabric for the folded in sides. So I'm going to use my 25mm tool. Therefore, I need to cut a strip that is 50mm or 5 centimeters wide. And if you're working in inches, that would be a finished binding of 1 inch. So I need to cut my strip 2 inches wide. And once you've gone through and measured out all the strips that will fit into your piece of fabric, cut them out. So this is one way, and probably the most laborious way to cut out bias strip. But it's good to know how to do it this way. And this works if you only need a little bit of binding and you don't need meters and meters. If you do need meters and meters of binding, then this next way is really quick and will get you binding much faster. After you've found the 45-degree angle, you're going to take a cardboard roll. This was from an old wrapping paper insert, but you can use whatever roll you can find, maybe from leftover Glad wrap or something along those lines. You're going to line the roll up on the 45-degree angle to the corner of your fabric and then roll it up like this. Then slide out the cardboard roll. Flatten down your fabric, and then we can mark out our increments of 5 centimeters or 2 inches. We just continue along the roll. You can use scissors. If you've got a mat and a rotary cutter, that makes it even easier. Once you've cut out all of the strips that you need, we need to join them together to make one continuous piece of binding. I like to line them up like this, and then with right sides together, line up the two edges so that there is the equivalent of the seam allowance overlapped like this. It feels counterintuitive, but when you sew the seam, it will all line up when you open it out. Now continue to join all of your strips together. Now I'm going to show you a couple of different ways that you can press your binding. First up, I'm going to show you using the binding tool. Take one end of your binding, and with wrong side facing up, you want to insert it into the large end of the tool, and then it will automatically roll the two sides in both at the same time to make your binding. If you have trouble getting your piece of fabric to feed through, they usually have a space at the back where you can use a pin or something else to help you push the fabric through to get you started. Now, with your iron in one hand and the tool in the other, slowly press the binding folds in place while you're moving the tool along. When there's a seam, it can get a little bit stuck, so you just have to pull a little bit harder there. And you just continue along till you reach the end of your strip. Now, if you don't have a binding tool, or you only need a small amount of bias binding for a neckline or a sleeve hem, for example, you can prepare your binding like this. Press the strip in half and then fold the 2 outer edges into that center line. Now, if you're like me and you end up loving binding, you might want to go hardcore and get a binding machine. Now, it is a little bit of an investment, but you can get them on sale from time to time. This is a Simplicity binding machine, and it's really cool. It works pretty much, exactly like the iron, but it does a really good job of keeping everything nice and in line and coming out beautifully, like professional style binding. It does still get stuck, however, at the seam points where you have to help it through the machine. But other than that, it's really good. So how it works is you cut your strips and you sew them together like you would normally, and then you wind the strip onto a spool at the end, and then it threads through the binding tool and then over a hot plate and then comes out the other end like magic. It's much quicker than ironing it by hand and is great because it has different temperature settings and different binding width attachments. Anyway, that's just something that you might consider getting in the future if you find that you're making binding a lot. This piece of fabric is about 40 centimeters square. I ended up getting about 3.5 meters worth of binding out of this, so you don't need an awful lot of fabric to make a good amount of bias binding. Binding is great to use in so many different applications. You can use it to finish off raw seams, for neck binding, hems in general, sleeve binding, edgings, casing for elastic or for ties, and it's also great for making ties. I really hope you enjoyed this little tutorial on different ways to make bias binding. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. Please like and subscribe for some more sewing videos like this one. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.